I'm going to start with you, Carol, Poppy. If you'd maybe take those, you can take the first three since the third one there is done. That's Baki. Baki. Mm-hmm. That's correct. It's weeping. That's a Bekor. Yep.
That one is first.
Correct. Amesh. Yep. Yep. Very good. Wayne, could you give me the last two? You can just read the first one here. That's a final pay. Tough. Yep. Tough. These objects are tough to deal with.
Yeah, the children.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, tough is also the word for symbol, cleaning symbols. So the accent is here. So it's llama. Llama. Kind of like a
why?
llama. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ma is what? So this would literally be for what or why. Yep, exactly. Very nice. Good job.
And you said you did study. I did it right in front of me.
Excellent. All right, Steve, would you maybe take these two? Actually, take the first three there.
Well,
so, me, which means who? Me? Your syllable break is right here. So min, in ha. It is an offering. Correct. The root on this one is the a, the het, and the noon. The mem is a prefix letter for a noun. So your root is naha. All right. What about this one? So ma'at. Ma'at.
Say it again.
Ma'at. You had the meh exactly right. Ma'at. Little or a few. Yep. Very good. Very nice. And we'll go to the guy who got worked over because I didn't get my PDF loaded. Sorry. Mishneh. Yep. It is correct. Double or second. Yep. Each call. Yep. Is in wait. This is your root right here. The sheen, kof, lamed, which if you put E sounds here, makes the word shekel. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Yeah.
Coinage.
It's coinage. And so we put a mem prefix. This is a noun prefix in the front of this, and it becomes weight. It would be, yes, like a measuring weight if you're doing on scales. Yep. Very good. Awesome. All right. We are to Robin. Maybe take our first two there. A car. Yep. Oh, close, but no. It's to trouble. He was troubled, maybe something like that. And what's our next one here? Arav. Arav. Usually when you see this one, it'll be evening. So the word erev is evening. Boker, morning, erev, like erev tov, good night, good evening, is often what that one will be. All right, very nice. Daisy, since I skipped you, last Tuesday. Would you like to pronounce this one? Just pet. Pet. It's just pet. Do you know what a pet is? Nope, it's a mouth. So next time I'm angry, I'll say, close your pet. Close your pet. All right, that's all. I'll just do the one for you. You can get back to your top. We'll give Uncle Jay the last two. Pa'am, perfect.
And oh,
And baka. Yep.
we have and I would have to just guess.
So Carol did the very first word was bahi, which was the same roots, and it was weeping. So this one would probably be to weep or he wept. And then pa'am, we leave us with our last one, footstep, occurrence, or time.
That when it's talking about, is that a timing thing? Like in music?
Yes. So you might say in the course of time. So or as time progresses.
Footstep, then would that maybe be utilized in a cadence and a
Yeah.
marching?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because halak is walking. But a footstep, and it would kind of be like following. So you're in some kind of a exactly what you said, like a rhythm of sorts. But it can also just mean time, like in the course of time. Pa'am tends to be a poetry word, used most often in poetry. All right. Very good. Well, we're back to some learning tonight. So we're going to learn a few things, but just as a quick reminder. So Steve, I'm going to pick on you. Go ahead and put the word Seuss in front of each of these suffixes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Susse.
say,
Susot. Perfect. Very nice. You know, when you first got here, you would not have been able to do that.
I know, I was sitting there thinking about that.
Very nice. Very nice. We will start to see why these are going to be important again as we go through pronouns and pronominal suffixes, which is where we're going to spend a little time tonight, which is on pronouns and the suffixes. And we're going to stay just in we're going to look at both singular and plural versions of these tonight, but we're going to really just kind of focus on the singular. We'll focus on the plural next week. And so if you wanted to say in Hebrew, if you wanted to say the word I, as in first common singular I want to do this, or this is my table, whatever it might be, you would see this word and it's ani. Ani. And then there's a variation of it, which is anochi. Ani, anochi. And you'll see both. There's not really any rhyme or reason as to why you might get one versus the other. But if you were to say, let's maybe do a little bit of quick practice here. So I might do something like, we'll pull a pronominal suffix off of the end of this one to keep it simple. What's the word for name? Shem. So if I were to say Ani, Shem, Jeremy, then what have I said? My name is Jeremy, right? So go ahead and practice that. Ani, Shem, and then say your name. Just there you go. Ani, Shem, and then your name. Now, if I wanted to say you, masculine, Then I'm going to say singular, masculine singular, ata. Ata. So I might say something like, and again, this is not correct grammar, but just to kind of follow it, I might say something, ata Shem Gary, which I just said, your name is Gary. So go ahead and practice that, but you're going to have to say it to a man at the table. Okay, because we're only doing the masculine part. All right. There you go. All right. Now, if you're talking about feminine, female, it's just at. So you see ani or anohi, I, ata, you masculine singular, at, you feminine singular. Now you might think, well, that seems a little weird, doesn't it? That the for masculine is on the at. That seems opposite, doesn't it? Because usually the indicates a feminine form. But in this case, that's not how it works. And we'll see why that's not how it works as we go through some things. But at, so let's practice that. I might say something like, at Shem Robin. Your name is Robin. And so go ahead and pick one of the ladies in the room and you can say at Shem and then their name.
At Shem.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, if we wanted to say the word he, we already know he is who. Who is he? He is she, right? We remember these. Who is he? He is she. So who and he. I did want to point out this weird, awkward potential spelling that you can get. It's what's called defective spelling, where the she can take a vav instead of the yod. And the reason for this is in ancient writing, a yod and a vav were sometimes difficult to discern the difference. But I would say this one is 99% of the time. This is very rarely. So just learn the he, who and he. So in this case, I would, if I want to do who, so his name is, then I would need to be talking to someone else. And I might say, who Shem J. But I'm speaking to you about him, right? So go ahead and pick somebody in the room, masculine, and say that about, you need to look at someone else while you're talking about. There you go. All right. Very good. Very good. And let's try that for she. So I could say he, Shem, Carol. So go ahead and pick one and practice that. Yes. There you go. Very good. And we could say Poppy Berech Taf is a blessed child or a blessed gonging symbol, something like that. Whichever one we want to take. All right. Any questions about where that would be? I will just say these words, just memorize them cold. If you see it, you should just know it immediately. Your only tricky one that you're going to have in here is this ata. If I do this, which is ata, I have the word now. You, now. Now it was that a certain man approached them. So they sound somewhat similar, but they're spelled differently. Aleph on this one, ayin on this one. So just be aware. I've made that mistake in class before, and it can feel embarrassing. But this is one you'll want to memorize cold. This one we're going to look at just really briefly, but we won't talk about until next week. Our difference here is these are the plurals. Our prior page, singulars. These are the plurals. So we'll just read and practice them. Anachnu. Anachnu.
Sounds like an Egyptian god.
It kind of does, doesn't it? And the sounds I want you to start paying attention to are these endings. Anachnu. And if I want to talk about y'all, a group of men or mixed company, okay, men or mixed, men and women, then atem. Atem. And again, we'll pay attention to these endings. And if it's y'all and a mixed y'all group of ladies or female objects over there, it'd be aten. Aten. And pay attention to that noon there on the end. And if I want to talk about them, the they plural, then it's hem or hema. Now, we talked about these two as something that can also work as a demonstrative pronoun, that or those. So you can see them work in either place. And then for the feminine, hen and henna. Hen and henna. And again, pay attention right here. We've got a mem on the end for masculine plural here. We have a mem on the end for masculine plural here. And we have a noon and a noon for the feminine plural. Now, this mem on the end, we've seen. You just did some suffixes. What are those suffixes again?
Who seen, who saw, who spoke.
So the susim would be what's that suffix indicate?
Singular.
Masculine plural. Plural, right? Singular would just be sus, right? And so that mem from that im seems to kind of translate in here a little bit. So we're seeing some things that have some patterns behind them. And that'll be important to pay attention to as we go through this, because these patterns are going to become really important to recognize. And then, as I said, we're going to concentrate a lot on these endings, this E right here, and this ah, and this shawa stop sound, these oos with the vavs. We're going to pay really close attention to some of these because they're going to shorten our learning curve. We're going to have to just learn a few things, memorize a few things just once, so that having to memorize a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. And like, in other words, we could go over all of these patterns and you'll get table after table after table of potential patterns. And you can't memorize it all. It's too much. But if we can memorize a few things like construct forms, because those are repeated here, we can memorize our pronouns, then it will help us understand the pronominal suffixes that get added to words, right? So it will help. But these two tables, we're going to work on just having memorized cold. You'll just know it when you get it. All right, so let's try it. Wayne, I'm going to call on you here first and have you go ahead and read this.
Is that first vowel an E or an F?
So this is an ah. Ah.
Me?
It's ani. Ani. Yep.
Me. Sus. Da.
Ze.
There.
Ani. Sus. Ze. Which ani we just looked at. What is ani?
I.
Mm-hmm. Sus. What is sus?
Horse.
Horse. And what is ze?
This.
This.
This. Okay.
This. I or my horse, this. Or this is my horse.
Okay. Ani, sus, ze.
Yep. Ani, sus, ze. This is my horse. All right. Now, there's another way of saying this, and I want to introduce this. I've had that table up as we've been going through Jonah, that one at the end, and I say, start paying attention to this, try to learn this a little bit, these suffixes. And here's why. And I think I just heard Brent do it. Susi ze. So go ahead and read that one. I'll just go ahead and repeat that there, Steve.
Suffixes.
Susi ze. What does Susi ze mean?
Horse
It's
is
my.
mine.
So the E is the pronominal suffix for my or I. So this is my horse, this, which is my horse, this. These two sentences are saying exactly the same thing. And I want you to notice the similarity of what they end in. Susi, ani. Do you hear that pattern at the end? Susi, ani. This is why with the sere vowel, many will teach it as eh. I like to teach it as a, ze, because I want to hear the difference between the e's, the es, and the a's. I want to hear those sounds so that my brain goes, oh, if I hear e, I know I'm dealing with that kind of an ending. But if I have a construct plural, suse, now I know horses of, say, suse melek, horses of a king. I want to be able to hear the difference between the two. It's important to get those kind of squared away. Now, when you're reading it, you should be able to see it right off the bat. But these two sentences say exactly the same thing. My horse, this. This is my horse. This is my horse. This is a pronominal suffix. This is the pronoun standing alone, but they mean the same thing. Okay. Let's try another one. Let's see. Brent, you could read one, and Robin, you can read the next one.
Anachnu sus ze.
Then wait. Oh wait, no. Wait. Then no. Then
Susenu ze. Yep. So
the first one again for some reason.
that's okay. So anaknu. Do we remember what anaknu was? We or our. It's the first common plural. So our horse, this. This is our horse. But you can see here again, this pattern, the new and the new, susenu ze. Our horse is this, or this is our horse. So the sentences mean exactly the same thing. Now you can imagine if we can get the pronouns memorized, the ani, the ata, at, if we get those memorized, there's just 10 of them, and we get the sounds memorized, then when we come into these pronominal suffixes, about 80% of them will replicate the sound. The others will pick up the vowel. We haven't been there yet, but the others will pick up another marker, like the O ending or the A ending, and those will be pretty easy to pick up. But if you memorize those pronouns, just 10 of them, and you memorize how they sound, then when you hear it attached to a word, you'll be like, oh, wait, hold on. I think that might be a possessive on that particular word. So let's do another one. Daisy, do you want to keep working on homework? Okay. All right. So, Gary, go ahead and take the first one. Jay, you can take the second one.
Let's see. Te
Ata.
ata. Okay, you do have to say the olive and ata sus ze.
Yeah, I think I missed a vowel. Sorry.
I did.
No, I think I missed it. Ata susze. And Jay, go ahead and do this one.
So
So it'd be sus ka ze. That's the Zion. Sus ka Zion. Now, if you notice the change in our pattern, we don't have a The other one had the E, the other one had the new, but we would think this might be suseta, something like that. But we can't use tas on the end here. They mean other things. So we use the final form of the kaf on the end of the word. But do you see something that matches? Exactly. The vowel matches right here. So anytime we have a ka at an end of a word, it means your. So your horse is this, or this is your horse. Or susekha ze. Your horse is this. This is your horse. This says the same thing. So you know the sound. This is where I said about 80% they'll match one for one. But occasionally you just have to learn something a little different, but there is a similarity in our ah ending right here. So second feminine singular wasn't ata, but it was at. Does anybody want to take a guess at what it's going to be for the pronominal suffix?
Susek.
Susek. That's exactly right. So you're going to start to see that pattern emerge right here, because I can't put vowels in, apparently. I was having a terrible day on my keyboard. All right. So Carol, we're back to you. Go ahead and read this one, and Wayne, read the bottom one. This is an ot, by the way.
Okay.
Sorry. Let me get my. It's just ot.
Suso.
Just sus.
Sus.
At. Sus. Ze. All right. Wayne.
Susek.
Susek.
Zoth.
Ze.
Ze.
Susek ze. So this is your second feminine singular, speaking just to one female. Your horse, this. This is your horse. And you can see the similarity right here, right? This one ends, the other one for masculine ended in a kamats. This one ends in a shawa. This one ends in a shawa. And this form, these forms on the end will never change. These you can go to the bank on. They won't change. If you have at the end of the word, like in this form, you know you have a pronominal suffix. If you have echa, you know you have a suffix. They don't change. Okay? I know. It's like the first time in 20 weeks you hear something going, it never changes.
Well, what I'm sitting here also looking at and thinking about is the shawa at the end means that there's no more sound behind it.
That's right.
And so this is strictly visual.
Very much.
That's not something you would, you just have to know from listening that.
If you're a native speaker, you would pick up on the difference.
Okay.
That's why when we're as English speakers, I can be mumbling along and say, and you know what else I was thinking, and you hear and, even though I only said and. Because you know the context, you can just put it together. Same thing in a native speaker, they're going to hear that susek, and they're going to immediately know versus susek. They can just instantly, but they also know in the context, we're probably talking about you masculine or you feminine, and they already have that in their brain. Whereas Wayne and I have to stop and break up our sentence into pieces and then go back and reassemble it and try to figure out what it is that's trying to be said. Okay. So yes, you're right. It's a subtle difference, but when you're reading, these are, you can go to the bank on them. You see those endings, you know what they are. All right. Let's see. Steve and Brent. So Steve, take the first one here. Brent, take the second.
Who? Susa.
Nope, just who, sus.
Za.
Who, sus, ze.
Ze.
All right, Brent, go ahead and do that one.
Suso ze.
Suso ze. So his horse, this is his horse. And same thing here. Suso, his horse, this is his horse. Same thing. Now, you might be thinking, what's the similarity here? Well, it's this vav. And this vav on the end of a word is going to become really important. Now, we see it and we think the whole in vav, it's got the O sound to it. But the O and the U, they're really close. They're very related to each other. So when you see a vav on the end of a word, whether it be an O or an U, usually you're looking at some kind of a suffix that's telling you third person something. When we get to verbs, this U is going to mean something like a third masculine plural. It'll indicate a plural, but the O is always singular at the end of the word, always. So just, pay attention to that. You can kind of see where there are some patterns emerging between them, or I might just be making it up. But for me, this is how I remember is to learn the pronouns, understand how they're spelled, understand how they sound, and then I can hear it and see it when I read it. Okay. This is my horse. And I think we have one more because we need to do her horse. We're going to be an all-inclusive class and include the ladies. Which means I think, Robin, you're up for this one. In fact, Robin, just go ahead and read them both. What the heck?
Okay. So, he,
Just he.
he sus that,
He suse. Yep.
susa that.
Susaze. All right. We're back to kind of the old pattern of having the on the suffix, but her horse, this is her horse, or her horse, this is her horse. Now, again, we don't have much of a relationship between the he and the ah, but the ah we already know turns most things feminine. And does anybody remember this little guy? What that?
Only used in this context or something.
Yeah, you're in the neighborhood.
It's only used if it's like of hers or whatever.
Exactly. It shows up at the end of a word in the hey and the dagesh, and it is the doubling dagesh. You are correct. But in this case, it is communicating to us that this hey is here on purpose. It's not just a part of the word. It's been added on to the word so that you don't just, because if I take this dagesh out and I have susa, what do I have?
Being of course.
A mare. I have a mare, right? Susa is a female horse.
How do you say her as being of horse?
That's actually coming up in the next chart.
Oh,
So that's why that little guy is right there. And I want to say it's called a makef, but that's not what it is. And I always forget the term for that one. But this is her horse. Okay. Any questions on any of that so far? All right, so let's look at this table we've been spending some time looking at.
oh,
And then now do you remember? So we learned the ani, ata, at. Does anybody, and then who and he. Okay, those are the five. Ani, I, ata, you, masculine, at, you, feminine, who, and he. So let's work from the bottom up. So ani, the suffix is e. If I have a female, I think that was Grant's conversation there, right? If I have a female horse. So here's if my noun is masculine singular, which sus, that's the word we've been working with, right? Has been masculine singular. So susi, susek, suseha, susa, suso. We just looked at those. Those are all his. But if I have a mare, I'm going to change up that suffix to susato, susata. Do you notice what stays the same? O, a, eja, I. But if I know my table of constructs, these things that I've been putting up here for the last 8 weeks, and I know ought is feminine singular, which means horse of, right? If I want to say horse of mine, I could say susatani, right? Horse of me. Or I might say susati, horse of me. When we have our construct forms memorized, then I don't really have to learn each of these these suffixes individually. I just have to read through the word. If I get susat, immediately I should hear that and go, okay, I'm dealing with a female horse. A horse of what? Susato? Well, it's his mare. And I can kind of decode this a little bit. And for the masculine plurals, Steve, we said this before. What's the sus for the suse? Suse?
Say,
And suse is plural what? Masculine or feminine?
masculine.
Masculine. So if I know this suse sound and I see this little yod sticking out over here off of susav, notice I've got my consonant here is the same. It's a vav and a vav. See the similarity? So susav, I'm going to pick up this little yod and go, I'm in a plural. These are his horses. Susot. Steve, what was susot?
So, no, that was,
It can mean one of two things, can't it?
the
It can be construct, you're on it.
context.
Feminine plural, be a feminine plural construct or just a feminine plural. Absolute. We don't know which, right? For susat or susot and susot. But what we do know is it's feminine plural. If I have my vav ending or my ah ending or my eha ending or ha ending or I ending, I know me, mine, you, her, his, mares. So if I know my construct endings and I know my pronouns, I can deconstruct any adjective or noun as long as I know what the root is. But as soon as I figure out what the root is, I can go look up what that means. And now I know what the text is talking about. Here's the good news. Many of these will carry over to verbs. So when you learn them here and you get to verbs, you'll already pick up some of the E's and the echas and the X. You'll just know them already because you've memorized them. So while this table looked really intimidating, I wanted to kind of point out the similarities. So we'll look at that one more time. We get to his. This is who, suso, the vav and the vav. We're sharing that similar character there so that when we get to his, it's a vav, it's a vav, it's a vav, it's a vav. We get to her, it's the kamatse, 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 kamatse. It follows the pattern. And they're very reliable. They're really good about this. This doesn't really ever change. The echa, 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 echa. That's all the same sound that you'll hear at the end of it. Okay.
So the male plural would be susaiv.
So which one? This one? Susaiv. Yeah.
Well, I thought that when there was a yod after, I thought it was pronounced I. Susaiv.
So in this case, it'd be susaiv. Some teachers will say susav
Oh,
as well. It can go either way. As long as you pick up the yod and the vav. The yod's going to tell you masculine plural. The vav's going to tell you a third masculine singular suffix. And this is reliable. This, you're not going to run into. This is 99% reliable unless you're in some end of the verse weirdness that might change up some of the vowels, but it won't change it up that much that it's going to throw you off. Okay. So that's how we arrive at this table. We know our pronouns and we know our construct forms, because that's essentially all that's happening. A susato is a mare of his. It's construct. That's why they take the construct forms for the plurals. We're going to look at these next week, but just as a quick reminder, what was the pronoun for we or us? Sounded like an Egyptian.
God.
Yeah.
Anaknu. Anaknu. Notice what we have right here. New. Always reliable. Okay. And for your, does anybody remember second masculine or feminine plural? Second,
Attend.
was it's a tem, or what's the feminine form for
Oh,
plural?
7.
A ten.
Attend.
A 10. Well, we don't have a tav here. Why don't we have a tav here? Well, because our construct forms use tavs, and it's going to get really confusing if I have hot 10. Be very confusing. But what is it again?
Attend.
A 10. And here we have final noon, n. Final noon, n. Final noon, n. A 10, hen. Hear the sound? What was masculine? Second,
Attend.
tem. What do we have? M. Not em. M. Do you see the similarities? What was their feminine?
Wasn't it pen?
10. There you go. Here's our final noon. Again, final noon. N. In fact, here you get the full form that shows up. A hen. There's your whole form in that one. And what was masculine plural? Hem. Mems. And mems we already know. Masculine plural. We already know these sounds because we've heard it so often. And here it shows up in full, hem. So if you know hem and you see hem at the end of the word, you know immediately, but we won't talk about these as much today. I just want to point out there are patterns to the sounds and letters. They're trying to leave you hints, give you little gifts to remember things by. So when you get to the word, you'll think, oh, wait, hold on, that's what that is. Now, I will be honest with you. The coughs, they still to this day, I have to pause and remember what they are. These masculine plural in the second persons always throw me off. I think for me, if these had originally been spelled with a final form cough, which wouldn't make any sense, and then I got, the rest of the letter, I think I would have been able to do it, because it's easy to forget that this cough is the final form cough we just saw on the other page. Right? The echa and the ech, that's the same letter. Just one's in final form and one isn't. I think it would have helped me remember that a little bit, but that's just me. I forget that sometimes. But if we know our pronouns, ani, right? And ata, at, hu, he, then it will help us kind of put together what goes with what. And that's what we're headed to in the next several weeks, are these things. So we're going to keep reviewing some of those. All right. Where did I leave off on reading? Did we? Robin?
Yeah.
Robin needs to do it. You know what? I think you're right. They're going to be gone. They should read extra. That's right.
và đó
Mhm.
and and
Adonai.
oh and bố
Ach.
đó
Copy.
nó and nó nó beş đi
Nafshi.
mi meni bố
Ki.
ki bố moti me
Mechaya.
Mehayo.
All right. So we read this in Jonah last week. So I had mentioned that there's you can get confused easily between ata and atta. And so here's a good example of that. If this was an aleph, it would be the word you. But it's an ayin, which means now. So now, Adonai, please, na, kach. This is from lachak. The lamed like noons love to disappear. So now, Lord, please take. What's a nafshi?
So
So,
Well, nefesh is the soul. But what's this little ending tell me? Whose soul? My soul. Men means what? From many. This is literally min mini. From me. That's that extension. Because tov moti. What's a moot? My death. So now you would know if we know the words soul, we know these words are from, we know this is death. Well, this is my soul from me, my death. That's how we identify possession of those things. So you can see how knowing the pronouns and the suffixes are kind of the last key until we get to verbs of fitting in what it is you're reading. Good job, by the way. Very nice. Good job. Any questions on that one?
No, it's now, Lord, please take my soul from me because my death is better than living.
Exactly. You got it. That was Jonah's assessment of himself, right? After the Lord saved Nineveh.
the last one.
Would be Mechaya.
Nehaya.
Mechaya.
That's living.
For my death is better. So this word is the from min, from living, essentially. It's a weird turn of phrase because better my death from living would be its literal form, but you're going to have to turn this one. Hai is life, like lahaim. Yep.
Sorry. Apparently we had a lightning strike nearby.
Oh, there we go. All right, Robin, since you were picked on to read, you get to choose the next person.
I'm just gonna give it back to Steve.
All right, give it back to Steve. There we go.
Yeah.
So here's a good way. If you, however many vowels you have, are probably how many syllables you have. Va, ya,
Yeah.
as.
Vayas.
Vaya, as.
Lo.
Low. Sham.
Sham. There you go. All right. So what's my va?
And
And yeah, us, this actually has a hey here that's missing, or a yod. Just preparing you for the future nightmares in about 4 months.
Don't shake your hair.
Well, so asa means he made or he did. Asa. Well, that's what this word is. Asa. That's my root. First letter, second letter, third letter is disappeared because it's a hey or a yo. All right. So, and he made, what's low?
No.
Nope. Robin, we talked about this one
Yeah,
last week. Do you remember?
not really.
So this, if I have a low that looks like that, that's no or not. What's the difference?
That's right. Oh,
The column Vav.
This is a lamed preposition. And what's my vav telling me?
he.
That's he. That's right. So lamed preposition, 2,
To
4, whatever those might be. And I can attach a pronominal suffix to it. And this one you said was he. So what would my word be here?
him.
And he made for him, or in this case, himself, would make better English, right? And he made for him there. And I took out the rest of the shelter, but I didn't do the English. But there's your suffix right there in use. We just learned it. All right, Steve, where do you want to go?
I don't care.
Who do you want to send it to?
I'll pick Wayne.
You're going to pick Wayne? That sounds like a great idea.
Lee, Yot,
Mhm.
All,
This is actually the tzade.
Zal,
Tzel.
Zal, All,
Perfect. This is an O vowel.
Roshan,
Rosho.
Rosho, La, this is the Lahazi El,
Break it up for you.
Laha,
La ha
Laha,
zil.
Zio,
La hatzil.
Laha, Zio, Lo,
Hmm?
Mara, To,
Very nice.
To.
Marato.
Good job.
Very nice. Lahayot tzel al rosho. Lahatzilo berato. All right. So what's a rosh, Wayne?
Head.
A head. What's a rosho?
His head.
His head.
His head. What's a low?
Viewing.
Me?
To,
Well,
Or-
says.
or himself. To him.
Yeah. For him. Yeah. And what's a ra?
Evil.
Evil. What's the mem in front of this one? Is this just a noun prefix or from? How would we know this is the one that means from? The min prefix. How would we know that?
Got a new reg on the bottom.
It's got a this one has a tsere.
What's that?
Sorry.
Rush rejects the dagger.
The resh rejects the dagesh, shoots it down over here, and that's how I know I have a min from ra. That's evil. Do we notice this ending right here? Steve, you've been telling us about construct forms tonight.
Oh, come on.
Suse,
So,
Suso,
susat, susot. So which one is this closest to?
Suso.
The ot. Ot, susat, feminine construct, singular. From evil of his.
Is.
And we just learned something about this word ra'ah. It's feminine. Of course it is. It's feminine. But that's why we have this in the construct form, because this is literally the word who bolted on to the end of the word. Okay. And so it has to be in construct. You have to know that they go together. And that's why they take these forms. So it was shade for Rosho, his head, to deliver him. This is for him, to deliver for him from his evil, from his Ra. So that's what that would be. And this is a, kind of a complex word right here. But we can pick out all the little forms when we stop and just kind of think through that a little bit. All right, we have one more. Wayne, who do you want to pick on, or do you want to split it up? Kind of along. Let's do this. We can do a break right there. You can pick the next two. So Carol gets one. Who's your second one? You pick Jay? All right. He just looked at you and you were trying not to make eye contact.
No, I'm sitting there trying to read it.
Okay.
He looked the best like he was concentrating.
You'll have this last part. So you'll be good. But okay, so Carol, go ahead and read up to this purple line right here.
Ahe ito.
Ha'itev.
Ahite. Hara.
Perfect.
Log. Lech.
Lecha.
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 All.
Okay, this is a hard word. So ki ha yon
Kayon.
hakikayon.
Akikayon.
Do you remember that word?
Plant.
That's the plant. You got it. Hakikayon. It's a really tough one. Wait until you get to Nebuchadnezzar. or the word satraps, which that's the longest word in scripture. All right. So is it remember this is a question. Hey, is it well? Lekha. What is that one?
Or
There.
And the
For
this is the chart.
so ata would be you, second person, masculine, singular, you. So is it well for you to be hot, hara, to burn, regarding or over the kikayon? Is it good for you to be angry over this little plant? Remember that? Is it good for you? For you. These are great little practice tools, because if you can do li, lech, lecha, then you can literally put the pronoun into a sentence. For me, for you, for her, for him, for them. You can just practice that. All right, good job, Jay.
By a water.
Okay.
On Tolly.
Haitev.
I paid. And that was Hadara,
Yep.
Lee.
Mhm. That is not a cough. That's a dalet.
So that would be
Odd.
odd,
Mhm.
and then Mono.
So that's a
Mono.
vav.
Oh, that's all. Ma boat.
Ma. And then this is one syllable right here. Mavet.
Vet.
Mavet. It's tricky because we're used to seeing this vav as a vowel so often that when we get to the vav, and just like you saw, and you're like, whoa, where's usually this is an oo or it's an o. What am I? And with the moat word, the death word, it'll show up as a consonant in here. So, Vayomer hetev hara li ad mavet. And he said, Amar. So we have direct speech coming up, right? Quote, sorry. Quote. It is good. Lee, what's Lee, Jay? Sorry.
The on before,
Mm-hmm.
and then E is on the brain.
Ani,
Ani.
ani, I, me, or we,
So, or me.
for me. It is good for me to be or until, to be hot until mavet, death. Yeah. It is good for me to be mad until I die. This prophet, I'm telling you, he's got some trouble there. All right, very good. Very nice. It was good reading too. Have you been practicing?
No.
Oh, well, then you're just coming along in your sleep. That's even better.
You didn't tell us how to do that.
It just starts to happen sometimes.
When's it going to start for me?
Yeah, right.
Too. I want to go.
All right.
So part of what happens is you begin to recognize words. So if you're sitting here studying it, but Vaitamar is one that
We
got a
go.
lot in the said. So
Hmm.
that you begin to recognize.
You'll start to pick those up, right? Like the ones that are the lamed or the key prepositions or the alls or the els, the adonais, the elohims. You'll start to pick those words up and they'll start to make sense. And that's hopefully what you can start to do with the pronouns. We'll look at the pronouns again next week and just kind of start planting that into our brains a bit. And then we'll look at the plural side of the suffixes next week and do some similar exercises as to how we would say those things. So, all right. Any questions before we run over the vocab real quick? You guys did great. Reading is doing phenomenal. You guys are doing so good.
Trying to keep up with Brent.
Well, I know there's always that one student in the class. There's always the one. Yeah. In my Hebrew reading group on Thursdays, which is a class I finished learning Hebrew with, there's a lady in there, Malgarzata, who is out of Eastern Europe, and she's kind of self-taught in Hebrew, but then she went through the Hebrew classes, and she just reads it like she's been doing it forever. She knows the word. She just recognize stuff right away. Drove me crazy having her in class because she was just like that. You knew when we read together, she just knows what stuff is. I have to look things up still, but really impressed by her work. So anyway, all right. Here's our vocab. Ozen.
Oh, is it?
Ozen. That means an ear, and it's feminine. We're going to see for Torah tomorrow. I'm going to show you a interesting turn of phrase about God unplugging or unsticking ears so they can hear. It's an interesting term. Ahor. Ahor means backwards. It comes from the root. In this case, let me get my little drawer up here. The root on this one is ahar. The vav in this is actually just a vowel. So aleph, chet, resh. And that tends to be a word that has to do with behind or afterwards or something following. We'll see it in a lot of different forms. Petach. Petach means an opening or a door. This is, in case you're wondering, the word for petach. We have a kametz and we have a petach. And if you remember, this is the petach vowel. And I always like to think of it as like a door. If you're drawing a drawing and you have a door that opens, something like that. Petach.
Now we got Peta.
Yeah. Yes, Poppy.
I made a sentence.
Okay. Let's hear it after this, okay? Sa'ir.
Zaire.
Sa'ir means young or little. Here's one to throw into your vocab and learn. Kum.
Kumbaya.
Kum, to arise or to stand.
Cool.
That's one that Jay just already knows, but you heard it, but you probably never saw it spelled until you were
No, I
here.
never did see it.
Kum, to arise or to stand. This is in an imperative form. So if I were to look at Poppy in the morning tomorrow on 7:05 and I said, "Kum, kum," means get up, get up. It's an imperative.
What I heard.
All right. And next set, regel.
Regel.
Regel
Regel.
means a foot. And that's not distance. That's your actual foot. Things you walk on.
Ra.
Rahats.
Rahats.
Rahats. He washed or he bathed. I always like to think of the water as being rahats. It's hot water. You take a bath in the rahats water. Sorry, you just have to. My brain goes places.
Lavash.
Lavash. Yep. Rhea.
Rhea.
Rhea
Rhea.
means a friend or companion. This word often shows up in the law. We'll see a little bit of it tomorrow in Torah, where it says it's usually translated neighbor in the Old Testament. So where you see neighbor, it almost always is Rhea, which means a friend, a companion, a neighbor. Shachal. Shachal. Bereaved or a loss of sort. It's just really the easiest way to think of that word is sorrow. It's a sorrow word. Rahamim.
Rahmi.
Rahamim.
Rahmi.
Okay, we looked at this word, the root, raham, which means to have compassion. This is one where God, it's also part of a repent or relent word. When God repents from the evil he was about to commit on Nineveh, that's raham. But in this form, it's in, what does it have on here, Steve? We've tortured you with that chart all night. The eem word. Well, what is eem? What kind of words does eem go on?
Plural.
It is a plural, but what kind of words does it attach to?
Masculine. Plural. Wasn't it?
It is, but what kind of word? Nouns and adjectives. It's part of that agreement thing, right? You need to agree in gender, number, definiteness, and that's nouns and adjectives. So if I see an eem on the end of a word, here's a little pro tip. If I see an eem, I know I am not dealing with a verb immediately. I also know I'm not dealing with anything that has a pronominal suffix on it. I know I'm dealing with an adjective or a noun. So in this case, compassion is a noun or an adjective. And that eem is a clue. It can clue me in to know what kind of word I'm dealing with, which is really helpful when you start to read this for yourself. You see the eames and you know nouns or adjectives. So you can immediately kind of figure those out in your sentence, in your phrase.
So you're saying that Rhea is friend or companion.
Mhm.
So I assume in the Ten Commandments, when you thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house or whatever, it's saying Rhea there, right?
That's the root that it's going to say, except it's usually in construct form.
Okay, but it is that based on that word.
Mhm.
And so then whenever the Pharisee asks Jesus, like, oh well, who's my neighbor? It's based on that word. Okay, so go.
Yep.
It's like who's my friend?
Who's my friend? Who's my companion? Which is funny. Who was the first one that said something similar to that?
Cain.
Cain. Who's my brother? Am I my brother's keeper? Do I need to be worried about my friend or companion or my brother? He's the first one to come out with that. It's an interesting pattern. I should go look and see if there's any wordplay there. That might be funny. Fun to see. Shachar. Shachar. And you might be noticing something if you're Brent, because he notices these sounds. shekel, shechah, shechar. There's this kind of this sheen, kaf, resh, sheen, kaf, sort of a thing that tends to run in the circles of deceit, to be drunk. Shekel kind of can also run into, say, don't be willing to sell your oath, things like that. You get these patterns of sounds that show up in words that are kind of interesting. Shata
Tata.
means to drink. And that literally just means taking a drink of fluid, not drink like to get drunk. Just means if you're going to water the camels, you would shata the camels. Okay. Oh, one of my favorite ones. To e ba. To e va. It's an abomination. So the next time you get something made for you that doesn't taste well, you can say toeva. It's an abomination of a meal. And they won't know what they're saying. Well, you can't say that at home because she cooks wonderfully.
Toeva.
Toeva.
I
Toeva.
feel it's almost like go, but that's like good.
Is it right?
Thought it would be.
It kind of has.
Almost gonna be good.
Yeah.
Toeva. Yep.
Sounds like things.
It does sound like Klingon. It absolutely does. So, all right. Tehila. Tehila, which is beginning. This is a noun form. And my root is actually right here. It's the he, lamed, lamed. And this is too long to discuss here as to how we end up with beginning on this. But tehila is beginning. Not to be confused with tefillah, which is prayer. And then tama. Tama means he was astounded, or he was in wondered. He was caused to wonder, something like that. Trying to think. This is common. Shata is common. Tehillah is somewhat common.
Is that word any different? Because there's the one, in the beginning one, with the better sheet.
Better sheet at the beginning or at the head of, the top of would be. So you might say when we get to the end of Genesis 4 and it says, and then men began to call on the name of the Lord, like they started something that hadn't been going on. I believe that word is tehillah. That's when they started doing something.
Is that more of like an actual time thing than this is more of like this?
I would say this is probably more time related. The Rosh tends to be more location related because at the head of something or at the top of something, whereas this tends to be more time related. Now you're stumbling into a interesting discussion because Hebrew vision of time is not at all like us Greek thinkers at all. There isn't really there isn't this flow of time in that concept. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But
What is their view of time?
what is it?
What is
So their view of time is that it is not linear, it's repetitive. So when the author of Ecclesiastes writes, there's a time to live and a time to die, he's not saying like on a clock or you can check out your sundial. It's not at all what he's talking about. He's saying you can recognize the season for living and for dying. You should be able to recognize these moments to come along and go, oh, we are at this moment, this thing that's going to happen, not this time. So they wouldn't cycle through it like that way. So like the holidays would mark a season, which we would call time, and we think linearly it's going to repeat. And that's about as close as you get in the Hebrew Bible as to the concept of time. There aren't a lot of time words.
Should put that way, so our native.
Native Americans have that same sort of view of you're kind of living in this repetition. And so for them, time is, oh, well, yeah, of course the corn's ready.
Of course, what?
Of course the corn is ready to harvest. It's time. And then we as Greeks would go, well, when is that? And they would say, when it's ready. Well, yeah, but when is that? When it's ready. Well, what day is that going to be? Soon. You know, the concept of having that, that's why the Mayans having a calendar, mind blowing to have that in Mexico. And for the Jewish Essenes to build their calendars like they had as well to mark the seasons, that's when they began to think, well, if we're very precise on our holidays, then perhaps that will ensure us blessings from God. So there was a motive behind tracking those days so closely to try to predict some of that. But religiously, it's, as the rabbi would say, we always look at where we've been so that we know where we're going. So we don't look ahead, we look behind to know how to go forward.
It's like the kids say these days, time's a social construct, man.
It is, along with everything else, right? Anyway, all right. Anything else on that? Any other questions? You guys did really good tonight. So that's it.